Hi, I'm Ankur Gupta. Welcome to Inspired.
If you genuinely want to solve something and can give consistent time to solving it, almost everything can get solved. Develop a culture of respect for each other's work and an allowance that we will make mistakes, but we need to have the courage to admit our mistakes. I think artificial intelligence is an absolute luxury boon to the teaching community.
Major challenge that you have experienced as an educator, what would that be?
I'd say the biggest challenge I experienced was
Over 10 years ago, I left my career in financial services in the US and moved to India to start my entrepreneurial journey. I was clear I wanted to do something in education. What inspired me to the education industry was relentless commitment that every parent has towards their child's education and the need for a quality education in building our nation. Along the course of my journey in building a thriving uniform and merchandise business, I learned that there are a lot of people like me who are inspired by the education industry but don't know how and where to start. In this podcast, we get school owners, directors, and every leader who has had an impact in education and can help you be inspired. And today's guest is someone who has been a global education expert with deep expertise as an educator and school leader for close to 2 decades. He has built group of schools, Healthy Planet Schools and Nehru World Schools in UP under the ethos that it takes a school to raise the world. A continuous learner who operates with a strong purpose of improving the education ecosystem in India. Dr. Arunabh Singh. Arunabh, welcome to Inspired.
thank you for having me over.
Please tell us about this place. I have been amazed from the moment I walked in. It's an amazing work that you have done. How does one really imagine and create a process around executing a place like this? Would love to hear about that.
We started in November, and this is a purpose-built space for 180 children. And the attempt has been to perhaps create something that we wanted for our own children but did not have, and to create an inspiring space for educators with an attempt of, or should I say, an aspiration of solving early years education in India and becoming a space that shares. It's almost like an open source space that people come in, learn from, and maybe go and do it in their own campuses. It's got a collaborative space. It has a co-working space for the parents. And we were doing a lot of focus group discussions when we were researching for this campus. And we realized that mothers invariably were saying that if I had a space that I could trust, I would start early, or maybe I would have not had a career break. So the co-working space allows the parents, as the children as young as 9 months old, to come in and with their child. And while we take care of the child and look at the learning of the child, parents can use a co-working space and the cafe and get the work done. So yeah, we're quite excited about this little campus.
There's a lot of design element that we see here. So can you talk a little bit about what inspired to choose the type of designing and architecture that you've selected for this place?
We were looking to create a space which was inspiring for everyone, and a space that was true and elemental. So what you see is an exposed brick, exposed concrete built
Okay.
with nothing which is pretending to be something else. So there's no false roof, there is no paint, there is no sun mica, there is no tile. So it is what it looks like. There is a very strong element of transparency and a sense of wonder which has been maintained for the user. And all this while, one of our non-negotiables was that it has to be a super safe space.
Okay.
And there should be no corner that is not visible from somewhere else. So the portals that you see, these circular windows with threshold that are really low. And that's because for us, our user is a 2 feet something.
Yeah.
So we are making an allowance for the adult in the space. We're creating the entire campus for this young learner.
Oh, the circle certainly, all the round window element, and you window to within window. That really was appealing as I was sort of walking earlier around campus. So that's pretty
These are
nice.
portals
Okay.
from one space to the other space,
Okay.
and circle is naturally occurring in so many spaces.
Got it.
So
I want to hear from you what really fuels this passion, which has resulted into where we are today. It started somewhere, so I want to hear like what's your why, what got you into education, and has kept you in education for over 2 decades or almost 2 decades.
well, we've been running a school since 1978, which is a little before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my late father's dream to open a school, and he really didn't have the money to do so.
Okay.
So the first school that my mother and father ran was in a 2-room rented little place,
Okay.
and that organically grew to become the campuses that it has now. And till I was a 11th grader, I grew up inside that little school.
Oh wow.
It was a horseshoe-shaped building, and we had 2 rooms in the middle. So, in some ways, as I was growing up, while I would go to a school myself and experience it firsthand, I also found myself listening in on my parents solving school-related issues as they came back.
Okay.
I remember my mother asking me things about my classroom, and it wasn't lost on me that she was asking me as a mother, but she was also asking me to learn from another system. So that was childhood. Then I went to Hindu College, University of Delhi, which was a fantastic place to study. And Hindu College took me to King's College London for a master's in education. And I think this is where my personal switch on what high quality education looked like happened.
Okay.
Sitting in that classroom, sitting in primary, secondary school classrooms in central London, and understanding what is it that they're really preparing their children for, and how is that different to what we were being prepared for. So that exposure perhaps created a new portal of learning. I worked in London for a bit, came back in 2006, and I got married in 2007. Fortunately for me, Sonal, my wife and the better half, she fell in love with the education as well. And along with our family, we started solving one classroom at a time.
So from your story, you've taken on a legacy, but then there was something in between, whether it was your education or exposure to seeing your parents solve the everyday problems, that led the switch for you to really take this on as a career. I'm sure there was other options, and what was strong enough to keep you saying okay, or was it like a necessity that you have to take on the family education engagement?
No, there was no necessity to come back and take the family engagement, and I still have those choices. But I love doing this. I love solving what we get to solve, and to work with children and see them thrive.
Nice.
To see them come back and speak to you at alumni meets and remind you of something that you said 10 years back or 15 years back, and to realize that you have that impact. So we love doing what we do, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else.
That's amazing, and certainly stories like these do inspire people. What a lot of our listeners are people who are either on the fence of thinking about starting their journey in education, or maybe already in course but struggling with different stages in being from a startup school to an established school, so to speak. Who should start a school? I mean, who should really think about? I mean, I know there will be people who are passionate about it, but then maybe it's not for them. How does one evaluate to take this on?
Everyone should start a school.
Okay.
It's really fulfilling, and it's a good thing to do.
Okay.
B, especially in India, we are the world's youngest and the most populous country, and we're going to be like that for a few years, which is almost 1/5 of the world's population. to your international audience, India has roughly the same number of children in schools today as is 70% of the total American population.
Okay.
So the number of children needing education in this country is huge, and it's growing. And we need all kinds of schools. So let us not be judgmental on what comprises a great school.
Okay.
A school is better than no school. And unfortunately, in our country, there are some children still without a
Not
school.
yeah.
So my advice is everybody should start a school. They should start a school based on their means and their aspirations. But everybody should start a school.
Can this become a primary profession for a new school owner? Because I get the social aspect of it and the need for our country, the need of the hour to have schools and of all sort of levels, if you may,
Yeah.
right? But at some point, you know what, and it's a very popular trend I see also around India that, you know, it's a great second sort of profession.
Yeah.
How can this become a primary profession and be worthwhile?
So see, one challenge that we see when people want to make investments in K-12 education, there's not the same as EdTech or anything else except for running of a school that a school can only be run in a non-profit trust, society, or a Section 8 company. So there are a lot of people who say, well, I am not going to put my hard-earned money in this. How am I going to get this money back? So maybe the government needs to have better regulation for this sector and allow for private limited companies to set up schools. I most sincerely believe that if that happens, some very patient capital, clean capital is going to come into the sector, and it would become
change the landscape.
Easier or more straightforward to set up a school. Perhaps getting the fundings from the banks is going to get easier as well. So in the long term, this is going to lead to a lot of good for the education sector in the country. But till such a time, and also, actually, before I move forward, this is also a subject of the concurrent list of the Constitution. So every state has a law on this. So while some states are more forward-looking and they understand the challenge, they've already simplified their state laws. Some other states are lagging behind. So we need to look at this problem of how do you get the right funding into education if we have to increase the number of schools further.
Are there other countries that India can get inspired from or learn from who may be already doing this better?
To run an effective school system, it needs to be a joint collaboration between the government and the private. Something which is existing in India at a large scale already. For about half the children study in private schools and another half go to the government schools. If we could get a choice with the parent that here is an X amount of money that the government is going to spend if your child goes to a government school, but you can actually take this voucher and use it to subsidize your education in a private school. You would have now really democratized the choice of school with the parent. So for example, if the government is spending 500 rupees and the nearby private school is say 700 rupees or 1,000 rupees a month, I could take that voucher of 500 and only pay the rest of 500 to the school, and allow for a efficiency model to take place, and the parent has now a choice every year and decide if this was a good enough provision for my child or else I move again.
And it makes things simple from a school's perspective also, in terms of, it's like someone submitted a voucher and the school doesn't have to be running around to claim their fees, whatever the small amount that may be.
So there are several countries in the world who've successfully managed a voucher system. So maybe that's something that we can learn from. But Ankur, it's very easy to solve this from the outside. I'm sure those intelligent people who are looking to solve it have been thinking this through as well.
Yeah.
I remember I was on this committee for school standards under the new national education policy, and we were discussing what would constitute a school? What is the bare minimum for something to be called a school? And I said, well, it should have potable water and it should have a working toilet.
Okay.
And there was a gentleman on the same committee who said, well, that would mean a lot of schools will shut down. So would you rather wait for a working toilet for education to come there, or would you say, I would bring education nonetheless, and the education will have potable water and sanitation follow? And that gentleman did have a point. So we are a country with vast spectrum of
Needs.
Educational need and delivery. So let us be inclusive and let us not leave the last child behind. So, but better regulation will certainly lead to more children getting covered with high quality educational engagement.
Got it. So obviously, let's keep aside in terms of the structure and all of that. The law of the land says that it has to be a non-for-profit, and till the time that reform comes, we have to think about working on those lines. There's still a lot of decisions that come into starting up, right? In terms of whether you open your own school where you do everything from scratch, or increasingly there's a lot of brands which are franchising in different parts of the country and becoming really big and growing very fast. And I'm sure there's pros and cons in both scenarios. How does one make an evaluation of that?
Well, it would depend on the context of the person who is looking to open the school. If you have some experience, or if you have some in-house expertise, then I would say open a school yourself. You would be learning so many things as you go along, and it'll be absolutely worthwhile. But if you don't have somebody who comes with the tons of expertise that is required to run a school, it perhaps is a good idea to go to a consultant or a chain of school operator and say, I aspire to run a high quality school, and what is the value that you can add to the table, and maybe speak to many such players. Okay. and weigh them on what value do they bring on the table. But I strongly advise people to spend money on knowledge, the very knowledge that they are planning to provide as they begin these ops. I was inspecting a school last year, and their affiliation had been rejected because when they were calculating the minimum square footage of the classroom, they got an architect to draw that room, which was the stipulated size, but they did not take into account that the 9-inch wall on both sides will lead to 18 inches on each side, this room becoming smaller, so 1.5 feet in length and breadth, which now meant that every classroom in this built-up school building was smaller than the minimum area required per classroom. Now that was a very expensive mistake.
Oh wow! Yeah, so, I can't imagine.
So they certainly should have an expert come and advise them.
It's what they say, learn from other people's mistake. I mean, all of these franchise operations have basically what they used to say, McDonaldized the operation in a way, have a playbook to run. And some doing better than others.
To McDonaldize it. It's far more complicated to run a school. Which neighborhood, what catchment area, which price point, what curriculum. There are a lot of decisions. Where are your teachers coming from? So it's far more difficult and complex than to run a McDonald's. But yes, they've made mistakes before. They've learned from them, and they certainly come with a body of knowledge that is helpful for somebody who's never done this before.
So you talked about curriculum. That really gets my attention because I have the privilege to be traveling in a lot of cities around India and some overseas as well. And especially in India, what I have seen is, the concept of international schools is now booming. Right? Now, my initial understanding was international is, IB or Cambridge or American curriculum. But then, when you dig a little bit deeper, international is something that is used for even like state board schools or CBSE schools, things like that, or ICSE schools. So I'm curious, to hear from you. What does it mean to pick which curriculum to pick, which board to pick, and this whole nomenclature of international schools? How does that work? Is that misleading?
So let's not speak about the nomenclature. There is no rule governing what you're going to call yourself. We call ourselves Healthy Planet School.
Fair enough.
So, but there are no permissions to be taken to call yourself
call
a planet
yourself
school.
healthy or
Aren't you a planet school? So,
or healthy.
or are you not a healthy school? So, let go of the nomenclature. But international curriculums that have come to India have primarily come from the first world countries.
Sure.
And these are countries where the curriculum has been an inquiry-led curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because these economies have been knowledge economies for a longish period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it has mattered for them much more that their learner is a thinker. That this learner can think of a fertile, relevant question and then spend time in solving it. While a manufacturing economy or a services economy hasn't had that kind of a need.
More of a colonial legacy in some ways?
Again, we've been away from being a colony for a long time now.
Yes.
So let us talk about what we've done with the independent nation.
Mm-hmm.
And in all this while that we've been independent, our needs have changed from being an agrarian economy to now being a services economy, and we are now talking about exporting knowledge to the world. So, from a content-driven curriculum approach, our approach needs to be a curiosity-driven approach, and that is where I see our national curriculums going as well. So we should definitely learn from international curriculums. They have already been solving this for a long period of time. But now our need is very similar to their need, because our student who is in primary school is going to be doing the same kind of jobs or similar kind of businesses as their American or British counterpart is going to be doing. So we need this student to be a thinker, problem solver. Thus, let us get him first curious about what is being learned, and then feed him with resources where he can find his answers. So, simple answer, the 2-mark answer, let's learn from international curriculums. There is a body of knowledge that they've developed, and let us inspire our own schools to think deeper into how students learn.
So, Arunabh, you've been at it in terms of, running schools for almost 2 decades now. There's obviously, there is some processes in place and there's some structure in there. Like as a business owner, we have what we say 7 functions in our business. You have, sales, marketing, operations, R&D, HR, finance, and then management as a function. Are there similar sort of core functions that you consider are important in running an efficient operation or running an efficient school that people can learn from? Would love to hear that.
When a parent chooses a school, the parent has complete trust in that school, and that is why that school has been chosen amongst a list of 100, 200, 300 schools of that city. And the parent has trusted that the school is going to be doing something right for their child. So the first function of the school is to protect that trust.
Absolutely.
And deliver on the promise that they made to the parent when the child came in. And in order to do that, the school has to run hundreds of processes. And it's not a production line. It's humans creating an environment and opportunities for other humans to learn in.
Yeah.
So the possible failure points are hundreds every day.
A lot of moving pieces, a lot of variables.
Lot of moving pieces, lot of variables.
Yeah.
Where no 2 children are the same, no 2 days are the same, no 2 periods are the same. no two teachers are the same. Nothing is same.
Yeah.
Everything comes with a unique proposition. So in some ways, running of a school is running of a symphony.
Okay. I like that analogy.
So it's a delicate balance. And based on who you're serving, your balance would shift, but it has to still stay a delicate balance. There are teaching roles and there are non-teaching roles, or the administrative roles.
Okay.
So just like any other workplace, there are all of those that you mentioned and then several more.
Okay.
And a school has to look at every child there as if this was my child, is this the best I could have done for this one? And if you're putting that filter on, then other things tend to solve themselves over time. And I strongly feel that schools are like the managements of their school. So over time, everybody in the school is thinking in the same way as the management is thinking. If the management is fair, honest, ethical, then the last person in that spectrum would eventually become
You truly
honest.
become the spirit of the organization, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
As schools, we get one advantage over many other ecosystems. One academic year to us tells us a lot about what the next academic year is going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
There are several functions that will happen again, almost at the same time, adjusting for Saturdays and Sundays. So if you are a learning, reflecting school, then every year you can learn a lot.
Okay.
My professor for teacher development taught me in the last class of my master's in education. He said, well, experience does not teach you anything.
Okay.
And then he took a long pause and said, but reflecting on your experience does. So to run an effective school, or a school that is progressive and is solving newer problems every day, we need to create a culture of reflection. We need to create a culture of accepting a mistake that I have made and a resolve that I am not going to be negligent.
Okay.
So across those hundreds of processes that you run, if this is your common denominator, chances are that things will fall in place again and again and again. So document your processes, go back to them, and add your learnings.
How often you review these processes, or one should review these processes?
As soon as there is a deviation from the previous way of solving it, there has to be a review, and it has to get documented. Because nobody can create a perfect system.
Of course.
And nobody can create a system where they've had that problem before. General Kulkarni from Mayo College says this often. He says, anticipation is the first form of defense.
Okay.
So as a community, we need to anticipate a problem and then solve it beforehand. I'll give you a school-led example. So when we take students for picnics or school tours, we have a safety checklist. And we have a prep of the place, because you're taking children into an external environment. So actually an advanced party goes and checks for all of those things. And says, yes, to our reasonable beliefs, this is a safe space and we would have no problem. We've already planned for all incidentals. So as much as you can plan for a problem, your challenges are going to be much lesser. I'll give you another one from yesterday. There was a girl who'd forgotten her admit card at home as she came to the board exam center for her exam.
Oh, wow.
For several years now, we've been carrying photocopies of admit cards
Of every child who's
appearing for the exam to the external board exam center. And we know that out of these 150 kids in grade 12, 150 in grade 10, 300 kids, 5 exams each, 3 or 1,500 exams to be given in total. At least one child will forget the admit
One
card.
incident will happen.
One incident will happen.
Is likely to happen.
So once we had that challenge many years ago, that a child had forgotten the admit card. Since then, we've been prepared every year, not just with admit cards, but with water bottles and pencil boxes. So you make one mistake once, you learn from it, And that.
So what you're saying is that you might not always have a playbook or a process laid out from day one, but it's that mindset of developing continuous process and documenting and reflecting an improvement upon them.
Absolutely.
That over time has a compounding effect into a strong operation.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. That's very insightful. I have yet to come across a school that doesn't talk about teacher hiring or teacher training or teacher retention as a challenge, right? Again, with increasing number of schools coming up, the need is there and that enough supply is not there. What's a way to solve this challenge?
But we don't face the challenge.
Mm-hmm.
We only lose colleagues when they're either getting transferred,
Mm-hmm.
so they're moving out of city, or somebody is going on a maternity or a paternity break,
Okay.
or they're getting promoted and getting a job in another school.
Hmm.
And when that happens, that's when the biggest party happens, because somebody from our team has succeeded. And I believe we are having this problem much lesser because the organization understands that people are the organization.
Mm-hmm.
This campus is not a school at night.
Mm-hmm.
The school comes in the morning and leaves in the evening.
Because of the people.
It is the people. The school is the people of the school. People who run the school, people who come to study in the school. So it's the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And when school managements understand that, unfortunately, some of my peer group still haven't figured that out. They would put a 5,000 rupees a square feet stone in the reception area, but sometimes not spend that much money in teacher enablement in an entire year. For the fear what will happen if I train the teacher and the teacher leaves.
Yeah.
They need to be thinking what happens when you don't train the teacher
And
and
they're
she
still
stays.
around.
So we
Yeah.
need to invest in our colleagues and develop a culture of respect for each other's work,
Mm-hmm.
and an allowance that we will make mistakes, but we need to have the courage to admit our mistakes, to seek assistance, so that only one person has to make a mistake once and then others can learn from it. And to the managements, let's invest in people. And when you would do that, a lot of these challenges are not going to be challenges anymore, because you would have developed a culture of learning.
One of the things that I came across was that you talk a lot about empowering your teachers internationally as well. What does it mean to empower your teachers? And I'm assuming some of that helps in what you're talking about, enablement of teachers and keeping them associated with your institutes for longer time.
We have a sincere belief that somebody who chose to become a teacher
Mm-hmm.
and became a successful teacher
Mm-hmm.
could have done a lot of other things in life.
Okay. Counter to popular belief?
Absolutely, counter to popular belief.
Yes.
This is a people's manager. This is somebody who shows up to work every day
Punctual,
on time,
yes.
can work long hours, can work under pressure, can work under scrutiny,
Yes.
can reinvent themselves, can adapt to newer technologies. Pandemic was a good example. This is almost a superhuman.
Yep.
So this superhuman who's choosing to teach is a special kind of human.
Okay.
And once you understand this and start appreciating this, a lot of other things they fall into place. So allow yourself this understanding. And to friends of mine in management who've never taught a classroom, teach for a week.
Interesting.
And for those parents who think they can teach better than the teacher, come do a guest lecture in the school.
That's actually a pretty cool idea. Have you done that?
We've done that a few times, and our parent body is a very thick parent body. We often have parents come in and work with our children. And we also have a lot of alums who come back and speak to their juniors.
Yeah.
So let's appreciate that everybody is a human. Let's also appreciate that we genuinely intend to add value to the lives of our students. And once that is clear, we will find ways.
Got it. But one thing that, obviously, from a positivity aspect, I get what you're saying, and I'm sure it's easier said than done, and it has not happened overnight for you also. Um, One of the things that I feel, when, like you said, if someone's succeeding, and with that third case scenario, when someone's been promoted and getting higher elsewhere, that's a very positive way of looking at it as well. And when you're saying you're celebrating that success, do you think everyone takes that celebration in the same positive way?
I think being happy for your colleague happens when that's the culture of the organization. And if you build the culture of the organization right, then you've kind of solved most of the challenges. If you've empowered your colleagues and know that you have their best interest at heart, then a lot of things follow as they would. We've also had colleagues who shifted out, went to another city, settled in, then came back to the city and said, well, no, we can't work anywhere else. This is the organization that we would work with. And yes, it is not built in one day. You have to stay honest and sincere over time. And this can't be a pretense.
Yeah.
It
can't be just on the surface level. You really have to mean it and do it. Your actions have to reflect that thought, I guess. Yeah.
And over time, you would see the same things happening in the organization.
And maybe people who don't align with this ideology will fiddle off, move away anyways. Yeah.
People who don't align with the ideology would find other places of work themselves, or otherwise they would fall in line with that culture. We've been really fortunate with the kind of people who chose to make this their workplace.
It's probably as part of the hiring process also, right? Like how you filter those, and then that's any tips that you would like to share in focus areas for hiring.
Well, one important question that is being asked in our hiring process is, why are you here? Why do you want to teach?
Purpose.
Yes, this is going to be a livelihood for you. Yes, there is a salary element of this involved, but why choose education over everything else? And very often you're able to see the integrity of that person in the response to that question itself. And very often you're also able to see it in their trajectory, where they're coming from. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah.
So in that short process, very often people are exhibiting a lot of signs. One thing that we do, and I think it has really helped us, is all schools do a initial interview, then subject round, and then a demonstrative lesson or two, and then they take a decision.
Yes.
So we added one more aspect of it, where we give the candidate an opportunity to reflect on that lesson.
Their own lesson,
their own demonstration lesson that they did.
Okay.
So we asked them to demonstrate
right after their
session.
It's like, how do you did? How do you think you did?
What went well? What could have gone better? If I would do this again, what would I do differently?
Yep.
Primarily 3 questions. And I personally feel that document becomes a really important document, because while the expert sitting in the room has observed it from an expert's eye, but how much has this candidate allowed themselves to be vulnerable in their own eyes?
Yeah.
As a result, how much are they open to?
That's a very good point, because that again falls back into that whole purpose of reflecting. Like if you can reflect yourself in an interview process, you're automatically fitting in the line of reflecting as an organization. I think that's a great idea.
And unfortunately, that's not something that ChatGPT can help you do just yet.
Absolutely, and promptly saying that technology obviously has to play and has been playing a role in keeping us organized, and I would want to delve into that as well. But I know you've done a lot of, in the age of where there is so much ready to take on EdTech solutions, whether it is for curriculum or managing your school operations. I believe you've gone through the pain of developing your in-house sort of a system. Tell us about that. What really made you said, was the ready to implement solutions not good enough, or they were not customized enough for you? What led you to go through that journey, and what were you addressing when doing that?
My EdTech friends find it funny, but we were looking to solve our problem in our way.
Okay.
And when we were looking to solve it, we felt, well, of hundreds of processes that we've spoken about earlier, one part of it is that they need to be done on time. And every day in a school, there are thousands of failure points.
Okay.
Imagine a school with 1,000 children. And on average, they have 5 subjects or a 8 periods timetable. So there are 8 different adults who are interfacing with these 1,000 children
Okay.
every day.
Okay.
So those are 8,000 interactions.
Touch points or whatever.
Touch points.
Yeah.
Just giving you a ballpark. Right?
Yeah.
So 8,000 touch points
On a daily basis.
on a daily basis.
Jesus.
Now this teacher is also given classwork.
Huh.
The child has to do, and then bit of homework that the child has to do at home.
Huh.
That makes it 16,000 touch points.
Okay.
Because
So it's external environment is also getting involved now. Yeah.
and that's for 1,000 student school.
Okay.
Some of the schools that you and I know of are 5,000, 7,000, 8,000 student
Yes.
schools. So what we were trying to do was a simple system which allows us to know that all of these processes that were supposed to happen happened or time or not.
Okay.
At the most granular level. And if they did happen, what was the efficacy of their happening? So what's the feedback of the user or the impacted party in that? And when it happened this time, did it happen better than last time or not? So is it an upward trajectory of efficacy?
Okay.
So we wanted to understand this problem and know, are we going up the hill, are we going down the hill?
Okay.
In all of our academic, non-academic processes, are we going up? In our efficiencies, are we going down? We could not find a system that would solve this for us. So we just went back to work and created process maps for everything that we were doing. And
how does
that's all.
the tech product that you have capture all these interactions? Because in like any business, we as a business use an ERP and we have all the processes in place. But the biggest challenge that I face as a business is that ultimately data is garbage in, garbage out. For this to make sense, input points have to be captured without fail consistently. How does that happen in a school environment?
I think some bit of our learning is coming from an empathy towards different work aspects of the school.
Okay.
And thus we were able to create a system where we understood the pain points of a teacher, the pain points of an admin officer, a driver, a cleaner, the school principal, you name it, all the people who help in running of a school. So some bit of that understanding led us to kind of create a system which was more real, and our data was crystal clear and actionable.
Is this on a handheld device or is this on a computer?
This is on a handheld device. This is all touch, and it doesn't require you to send anybody any reports. It only tells you if there is an actionable for you. It doesn't disturb you.
It doesn't have to be an extra device. It's मतलब आदमी के खुद के phone पे ही हो जाता है.
It's on the phone, whichever phone that they're using.
Okay.
If it's a touch phone, then
Wonderful.
you just put an app on that and.
So let's break this down. I mean, you come with a lot of intellect, a lot of exposure, like you said, and I know that you come from that technology background as well, right? Not every school owner, current or aspirational, would have that sort of intellect or access. What would be your recommendation for someone like that to start building some technology element to it? What are the core focus areas to cover, and how should they go about it?
Start on paper. Okay. Then go to Microsoft Excel. It's a lovely tool.
Google Sheets.
Go to Google Sheet.
Yeah.
If you genuinely want to solve something
Mm-hmm.
and can give consistent time to solving it,
Mm-hmm.
almost everything can get solved.
Sure.
But you need to be genuinely consistent in your approach and realize this, that that parent trusted you blindly
Mm.
when they left that 3-year-old in your school and turned
Mm.
and went back home. This was the first time they were going to give anybody outside the family their child. They
Can't
came
have
with,
anything more trustworthy situation than this.
there are times when a friend of mine asked me that, why do you distribute your mobile telephone number to your parents? And I said, well, they gave me their child. I can't give them my mobile telephone number.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to look at it. Yeah.
And the fact that every parent has my mobile telephone number
Uh-huh.
is the very reason that they don't need to use it.
Use it.
Because everybody knows that everybody has my mobile number. So,
And sometimes the comfort and the confidence that comes and builds that trust, sort
the
of.
school leaders need to certainly be more approachable.
Yes.
Something that works for me is being out in the morning at the school gates when the kids are coming in.
Mm-hmm.
As the child walks into the school, the child is telling you if they are currently in a happy state of mind,
Yeah.
if there's something bothering them.
Mm-hmm.
That little walk from their car or from their cycle or just them walking in tells you so much more.
Yeah.
So show up at the school gate, you'll find a lot of intel.
There's one topic that we have increasingly heard and talked about. It's artificial intelligence, right? And we can't, not have, your thoughts on that topic about artificial intelligence. And just like most new technologies, pros and cons, threats and perceptions of threats are there. A lot of topics that I hear is like, is artificial intelligence going to take over the role of a teacher, or is it going to change the way how we run a school, things like that. So I want to hear, as a progressive school that you are, what is your thoughts on artificial intelligence and its role that will impact the stakeholders from a student, teacher, parent, and a school owner perspective?
I think artificial intelligence is an absolute luxury boon to the teaching community. It's an energy, say like the fire. It can keep you warm,
or it can burn. What you do with it is really what matters.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah,
So what you do with it. So teachers, rather than being scared about how do I harness this this energy, need to put their minds to what are all the things that I can do with this tech. How I can guide my students to come up with a better prompt. How can I guide myself to come up with a better question? Something that we spoke about at the start.
Yes.
So the curiosity-led curriculums have been attempting to make the human brain think of more worthwhile questions. So I believe generative AI is super helpful in that context. And once this initial cloud of doubt settles, this would fast forward our ability to become better teachers and become better assessors of what the challenge that a child has. Imagine being able to give super personalized assignments to a child and then being able to do deep analysis on their responses, thereby understanding what is the problem that they're looking to solve and how best we can guide them.
So do you envision having tools which will say, like, if you have a response paper from a child, instead of a teacher evaluating it, you upload that into, Chat GPT and say, hey, give me an analysis of the student's work.
Absolutely. There was this child who was sharing with me a tool that she's been using. She said, "So well, I write my notes, and then I use a handwriting to text capture app, and once it's converted into text, I then feed it into this another app, which then gives me all the possible questions that can be generated out of those
Out of
notes,
those points.
and I can keep generating questions out of it endlessly, and that helps me revise what I have done." So it's on both sides of the equation. So but we would need to be realistic and understand that old notebook that has survived last 10 years for notes giving is no good anymore, and we need to rub our slate fresh and rework our understanding. But it is here to stay, and it is going to be a tremendous value add to classrooms.
Wonderful. And it changes the life of parents also.
It changes the lives of the entire society, and if you allow yourself to go back some years, then when the radio came about, there were people who thought that now this would consume everything else. When the television came about, there were 50 people, 100 people sitting in front of one television. Then the VCR, then the internet, then the mobile phones, and every time there was this scare of, will this lead to the end of intelligent human race?
Sure.
But every time we leveraged on these technologies and came up to be harnessing that energy. AI is no different, and I'm super excited about it.
Can that help us be better human beings?
I think tech can certainly help us be better humans.
Help me understand that more.
One big challenge that we are seeing with young teens is mental health issues.
Okay.
They're increasing, and they are showing up at much younger ages. But also the information sets that they're exposed to is so much more than what was the case before the advent of pretty much omnipresent internet. I would be really interested in a tool that gives a prompt to say, here is a challenge with the mental health of this child based on what this child is browsing right now.
So in terms of ways, tracking the actions, virtual actions of a child, and giving prompts or early indicators, if you may.
Early indicators to that child or to the caregivers, helping us understand from the child's writing what the child is trying to communicate, picking up a lot of non-verbal cues. There are various ways in which this is being tried, and they are currently in early trials. I read this white paper on this Chinese school where they're looking at the pupil dilation of the eyes of the learners to understand how engaged this classroom is right now. And they're giving a live person.
There's a camera in the classroom which is tracking every child.
Pupil dilation.
For their, oh wow.
On how engaged they are in the classroom.
I've heard like casinos use this kind of technology.
And giving the teacher a percentage of engagement as the teacher is doing a live lesson. So the use cases are endless, and we are only limited by our own imagination of what we can do with this tech.
But in your schools, students are openly allowed to submit their responses using ChatGPT, and is there a citing structure to it, or how does that work?
We've started teaching artificial intelligence as a subject in the school.
Okay. What grade? What grade are
It's
you?
currently starting at grade 11 and 12.
11, 12.
And this is the first year.
And that's where the maximum research part of their curriculum also comes into play?
I think it goes to the stage of maximum research in grade 2. And then stays like that.
Or is it more experimentation in grade 2 than research?
Oh, no. You need to rewire your understanding of the young learner. My daughter of 5 years of age, she was figuring out, reading simple novels or storybooks. There was this one time she comes to me, it's not able to understand a word, and I say, well, read the sentence, read the next sentence, read the previous sentence, what could the meaning be? And finally she said, no, you tell me. And I said, well, I'm not going to tell you. Where would you find out? I'm thinking she would say, the dictionary, and she said, okay, fine, I'm going to go and ask Siri. So
Okay.
so their understanding of how they're harnessing knowledge is so much more. It's different to our understanding of it.
I want to talk about trends in education, and I want to take a forward lens and a backward lens. Recently I heard Jeff Bezos was doing an interview, and he was talking about what would change. So in the context, if I was to take his questioning, there is a question about what's going to change in the next 5 years for education, right? His counter question was, what's actually not going to change in the next 5 years, so you can focus on those things to build your strategies and your deliverables around, and be a more robust operation. What would that be for you?
The need to have humans with high integrity is not going to change.
Okay.
We need a society that has people with high integrity. We will always need humans who are curious, and we will certainly keep needing humans who have high grit.
High
Grit.
Okay.
People who can stay on task to find an answer till such a time that they do. So, as an educator, a lot of things will change, but the need for high integrity, curiosity, and grit will never change.
And what do we do with knowing that these are the three constants? What should be our main focus of ensuring that high integrity, the grit element is fostered even better or nurtured better?
Children learn in a serve and return format.
Okay.
Whatever you serve to them is what they return back to you.
Okay.
If I need them to be gritty, curious, and have high integrity, I need to showcase all these three to them. So to all those parents who ask their child to lie on the telephone and tell the person calling that Papa is not home,
you're teaching them
rethink.
how to lie.
So model ideal behavior, and you will see some of that getting reflected. And your children are going to extend it going forward. In our culture, we call it sanskar. So what you plant in early life is what you're going to see getting magnified as your children grow. So let us become a society with high integrity, with curiosity, and with a lot of grit. And if you have all of these three, then chances are you will succeed in whichever tech-enabled environment or non-tech-enabled environment you find yourself in.
One of the things that I've personally been inspired, knowing you over the last 5-6 years, is your focus on learning and experimenting continuously in whatever you do. When we meet at a conference or you're interacting with two people, you're a very keen observer and learner. And then I have seen you implement that through constant experimentation. What drives that need for experimenting, and how are you able to do that consistently?
First of all, thank you for the compliment.
It is true.
You need to perpetually be critical of your work. And when you are that, and you want to perpetually keep improving the provision that you are creating, you would be on a lookout for how do I do this better. That is going to be the case for everybody in the organization. If that is what the culture of the organization is, then everyone is on a lookout of how do we solve this better. And culture is something that I've alluded to many times. If there was a wordle being made of my responses, then perhaps culture would show up as the biggest word. So I've been really fortunate with the culture that we have in this organization. And whenever you try something new, you should try something with a small number of users, and then allow those people who've done the pilot to actually become experts, and try and not solve the problem for somebody else.
Okay.
So bring those people in and say, well, here seems to be a solution. Would it work for you? So get the user testament. Once in a while, you would need to tell your team, I'm really convinced about this. Let's at least do a pilot. There are times when you'd go right, there are times when you'd go wrong. So, till such a time where your integrity is in place and it's not your ego
Okay.
ruling your thought process, chances are that 6, maybe 7 of new things that you would try out of 10 will work. But be mindful of consistency of work. You can't possibly change a process 4 times in a year. So be really mindful, be focused on what am I attempting to improve upon, understand the problem, analyze the problem, and then offer a possible solution with people's voice being heard who would be impacted by it. This broad framework has worked for us.
In terms of ideas, right? You said that, okay, 6 out of 10 ideas may work, 4 might fail, or vice versa, whatever the case may be, right? I think there's also a challenge that sometimes as a school owner or as a business owner, I can relate to that you find yourself like you're often the one bringing ideas and then it becomes a discussion. How do you become from that perspective to an organization where even idea generation is a cumulative exercise and it's not a one-person job?
Sorry for a repetitive answer, it's the culture. It was a few months back, I was told of a discussion that happened in the primary staff room where they discussed adding sanitary pad vending machine in the primary girls' school toilet.
Okay.
And the need statement was that puberty is hitting early for some children, as young as grade 4. So if it comes to them unexpected, they should find themselves prepared. Great. They had these 2 machines available to them, one which required a coin to get a pad, and the other one that only required a button to press and the pad to be dispensed. What I came to know later was that the team decided, we don't want a coin-operated machine. We only want, because if the child was...
So you were not part of this?
I wasn't part of this. I wasn't part of this entire discussion. I was only told about after the thing after the machine was installed, and the first cartridge of 100 pads was exhausted in first day because these girls were curious about what this machine is dispensing.
Wow.
But I was really happy on many points in this. A, they were that concerned about the need on a topic that is most often shoved under the carpet.
Sure.
B, they were sensitive to the fact that the child would probably find themselves unprepared, does not have that coin. C, the implementation. And D, being okay with the fact that 100 of them are gone and next day they were filled again and they were filled again till such a time that that curiosity had solved itself and now it is a machine that actually helps girls when they're in need. So I feel that this is a function of culture.
And that empowerment you were talking about, that you let them have the freedom to, and when you have the environment where your team can freely generate ideas and experiment, I think then they feel confident of bringing more ideas. Got it. I know. I think that's a genuine, and that's a very interesting anecdote you said, and it's a great example of how to give that thought freedom and being able to take something from identifying a problem to proposing a solution, taking it and then learning and having the patience to see the initial wrinkles and stability of that idea to come through. And once you do numerous cycles of those, I guess that's where the culture comes in. So, I mean, the major themes that I'm hearing today, Arunabh, are about, culture number one, strong processes, use of technology, and really, it seems like the culture is the binding force of all the tools, whether it is tech tools, human elements to it, your process that has allowed you to really build an institution of excellence. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I don't know, we've talked a lot about, different aspects of owning, running a school, challenges, things like that. I want to get to over almost 2 years of decade. If there was one major challenge that you have experienced as an educator, what would that be?
I'd say the biggest challenge I experienced was developing an understanding that everybody wants to do their best.
Believing in that understanding.
Believing in that understanding that everybody wants to do their best. And the reason why they're not able to do their best is because of a circumstance that they're not able to change. So if we can identify that and assist them in solving that, there is a high likelihood that they would perform.
Okay. And I think that the challenge is, the learning to that as a follow-up would be that, okay, how did you come to that understanding or belief, knowing that it's...
It just somehow dawned on me that everybody wants to do their best, and you need to create an environment where they felt safe, where they felt nurtured and valued. So if you were able to create such an environment where people felt trusted, people felt nurtured, cared for, inspired, then they would start to do what is something that they can do the best. So developing this understanding that everybody wants to do the best took me the longest. But once that happened, then
everything else sort of started falling.
Everything else fell in place. And
nice.
Most work that we do is on building a culture of learning. And it's building a culture of learning irrespective of you're a student or a teacher or the school principal.
No, I think that's great insight. And, I've heard a lot today about, culture really being the binding force of bringing everything together, whether it is your processes, whether it is your technology, and the whole mindset of continuous improvement and documenting and reinforcement, reflection being more important than the first attempt of trying something. I think those are very insightful things that a lot of our audience would be able to take and implement into their own environments, so to speak. And it's a culture shift, it's a mindset shift that we're talking about. But I want to hear from you, if I want to break this down into, how can one take all the learnings from our conversation today? How can one take all that learning from our conversation today and bring it to their schools?
Well, everybody is operating in a context which is unique to them.
Okay.
If there is anything that we've done, we are quite happy to share it. We are an open school. We are a listening school.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Anything and everything that we've solved, or what we are attempting to solve, or what we failed solving, we are quite happy to share it with anybody who wants in. If we had only solved this for 180 children in total, then it's not a very effective use of our time.
Yes.
But understand the problem that you are looking to solve is the one thing that most people skip.
Defining their own problem.
Defining their own problem, defining their own path. We start solving without defining.
So answers se pehle, question is more important than the answer that you're seeking, basically. Yeah.
Seek your why first.
Yes.
The what and how will follow.
Yeah.
So what is your why? Why are you in this? Why are you not doing something else with your life? Get your why in place. And once that is clear, then there are various ways of solving the what and how of your circumstance.
And it means a lot to the audience, and to be able to have the freedom to reach out to you. So thank you so much for offering that. I think that'll be very insightful. And I know that, you being very generous with your time and thoughts to help anyone who's aligned with the mission of improving education in our country. So thank you so much for doing that. And I wish you keep doing that more and more.
To the best of our ability.
There you go. There is always, that disclaimer has to be there. But no, I've seen you to give more than take as a general thing. And that's very inspirational to see that. Well, Arunabh, thank you so much for your time today. I feel like I'm taking on a lot more in terms of my understanding of the education landscape and what it really means to be a school owner and manage a school, and what things to look out for. So thank you so much for sharing all of that today. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast just as much as we did creating it. Nothing improves better than your audience giving feedback. So I urge you guys to share your comments, thoughts and ideas and suggestions that could help us be better and bringing more value to you. Feel free to suggest if there are educators and school leaders that you would like to see on this podcast. Feel free to share that in your comments, and we'll be happy to do our best to bring more value for our audience. Thank you so much. Please feel free to subscribe and follow us to get more content that will help you in your journey as school leaders or aspirational school leaders. Thank you.